Hey, what's going on everyone? Romeo here. In this video, I want to share with you exactly how I'm going to improve my Spanish in 2026. Now, yo pienso que estoy bastante bien ahora, pero puedo siempre mejorarme. So, in this video, I want to share exactly what I'm going to do, and no, this video is not for beginners because if you are a beginner, I already have a video for you. And I suggest that you go through my plan to get to the level of where I am and beyond. But for everyone else, let's go ahead and get started. Everything that I do towards completing that goal is I take that big goal and I break it down into little steps. And step by step along the way, it becomes more manageable for me to meet whatever goal that I'm after. So that said, in 2026, I plan to meet my goal by starting with two main resources and then, depending on my time, build upon those two resources until the end of the year. So with everything, for me, I like to start with a spreadsheet. And so in 2026, the two main resources that I'm going to use to begin the year is to use Practice Makes Perfect, Complete Spanish Grammar, and Spanish Short Stories, Volume 1. The Complete Spanish Grammar book is by Nilsson, is her name, Gilden Niesenberg, and the Spanish Short Stories books are by Lingo Mastery. And you can find both of these books on Amazon. The reason why I chose these two resources to improve my Spanish in 2026 is because Niesenberg's book, Complete Spanish Grammar, is not a beginner book. Her books are definitely for people who are high beginner or intermediate level Spanish learners. And then I would say the same thing for the Spanish Short Stories for Beginners. They are for people who already have a great understanding of the language and therefore can understand the nuances and things that they need to look out for as they use these resources to improve their existing level of Spanish. So back to my spreadsheet, I have taken the Complete Spanish Grammar book and I have already broken it down into the 26 distinct chapters that it has. And so far, I have decided that I want to take things nice and slowly as opposed to like rushing through the book. And I'm going to give myself at least 1 week per chapter for each chapter in the book. So chapter 1, I already started 2 days ago, or was that 3 days ago in 2025? But I'm going to take myself all the way until the end of May, unless the chapters become just like so easy that I can go through it faster. But right now I'm going to say, you know what? I'm going to take this book, Complete Spanish Grammar, and I'm going to spend the first 5 months of this year very slowly to pick up the nuances of things that I may have not caught in the previous book that I used, Complete Spanish, step by step. So that's what I'm going to do with Complete Spanish Grammar. The same thing with the short stories. I have the Spanish Short Stories book, and a lot of people say just read the books passively so that you can get through the book, but that is not what I plan to do. I chose the Spanish Short Stories for Beginners book, even though it's not for beginners. I chose this series of books because there's actually 3 books that it has in its series. It has the Spanish Short Stories for Beginners, it has the Spanish Short Stories for Beginners Volume 2, and there's an Intermediate Spanish Short Stories. The Spanish Short Stories for Beginners Volume 1 has 20 stories, Intermediate or Volume 2 has 20 stories, and Intermediate has 10 stories. And what I like about the series, even though it's not for beginners, is that the stories are short enough to give me at least a half hour of studying for each of the stories. If I go to chapter 1, for example, and there's really only 5 pages to each chapter. So here is chapter 1, page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, page 5. So the stories are short enough for me to read and nitpick on each and every phrase in the book. So that's what I've done so far. All right. Because I don't want to be at the point where I'm reading and as long as I pick up the big idea, then I'm okay with that. And like, nope, I want to scrutinize every sentence in the book so that I can understand what I would say or what I should say or what's the correct grammatical way to say a certain structure if I were to say that thing myself or if I were to see it in reading in some type of other story. And the other reason why I picked up this series of books is because it has an audio component to it. And listening to the language is just as important as reading the language. So my approach is going to be to read the story. And after I'm done translating the story or transcribing the stories, I'm going to translate the story into English. And after I translate the story into English, maybe over 3 days or so that I'm not spending too much time per resource per day. Ultimately, on the last day, I'm going to listen to the story because the stories are about 8 to 10 minutes. And I'm going to associate what I hear with what I previously read and translate it into English. So that's really my plan for the first half of the year. But that's not everything that I'm going to do because this spreadsheet is queued up for the rest of the year. If I make it through this existing plan early enough, then the next book that I'm going to approach is I'm going to approach Intermediate Spanish Grammar. And I'm going to do the same thing with Intermediate Spanish Grammar. Now, let's go back for a second to why I chose these books by Gilda Niesenberg. What I find important about her books is that it reinforces what I already know about the language, but it does so in a more detailed format than the book that I previously used, Complete Spanish Step by Step. So if you go into Niesenberg's books, like they are really, really detailed. And not only are they detailed, the book itself uses a lot of Spanish, even in the instructions. And that's why I say it's not a beginner's book. It's really someone who already understands the language. There's a lot of vocabulary, some of which I know, some that I don't know. And every time I come across new vocabulary that she uses, it's going to be something that enhances or augments my existing vocabulary in the Spanish language. And there's several examples, even in just the first chapter, where I've already picked up things that I didn't know before. For example, when I come down to exercise 122, I see this sentence here and it says, estoy en lo cierto. And that's actually a phrase I never heard before. Turns out it means the same thing as saying tengo razón, like I'm right. So estoy en lo cierto. So I'm like, okay, estoy en lo cierto. So I note that down and I'm like, okay, great. So little things like that I'm picking up along the way, and I'm sure I'm going to pick up a lot more in this book that's going to help me advance my language. Another thing I like about this book is she starts off even in chapter 1. After you learn everything that she teaches in chapter 1, at the end of the chapters, there's always going to be this challenge to translate an entire paragraph that's in English or an entire story that's in English into Spanish. And with that, you pick up a lot of other vocabulary. And some of the vocabulary I know, in this case, I knew all of these words. But as I go more into the chapter, I'm definitely going to come across vocabulary that I didn't know. So I take this story, something like this, and I use Google Translate to actually translate the story. I don't plug it in to to get the meaning of it. The way I do it is I have a split screen. I actually have 2 monitors. So this simulates that I have 2 monitors open. I have the exercise open on one monitor, which is in English on this page. And then on my other monitor, I literally type in the answer to not the answer, the translation of whatever I see. So for example, I hate Mondays, me odio los lunes, right? And I go through and I translate the entire story. And after that, I open up the answers and I confirm my answer right here. I confirm my answers with the solution that she gives in this book. And the cool thing about this, again, is I pick up more uses of the vocabulary, more ways to say things that I would say, because here's an example where I just typed out me odio los lunes, I hate Mondays, but when I go to her answers, she uses instead detesto los lunes. And I'm like, oh yeah, okay, great. So now that again augments the vocabulary that I already know. And so that's why it's important for me to go through these exercises. And I use notebooks and I use stories and I take an active approach to my learning because I can do it slowly and I can take in the information and think about it and process it as slow as I want, as opposed to using something like an audio or video program that, yes, I get the big deal or the big picture of that program or the big picture of that show or whatever it is, podcast, but I'm not going to have enough time to press pause and like to really understand what's going on. So this is my approach to start in 2026. I'm going to use these two main resources. And again, main resources. This does not mean that I'm going to be limited to watching a YouTube video if I find something interesting or listening to a podcast if I find something interesting, but that's not my primary way of augmenting and in getting better at the language. I'm using a slow approach so that I, over time, get better and better and get more words and more vocabulary, which are the metaphorical bricks to this house that I am building to eventually get me to the level of fluency that I desire to be at. So hopefully this video helped. And if you didn't already have your own ideas of how to move forward through intermediate up into the upper intermediate and advanced level, then it's something that you can possibly do yourself. If this video helped, give this video a like. And of course, I'm going to share more ideas of how I use my resources and things that I do to move my own Spanish forward. So if you're interested in hearing more of those ideas and you have not already subscribed, be sure to subscribe to this channel. And until next time, peace. Oh, and if you want to follow my journey, I'll leave a link to my 2026 tracker either in the description of this video or in the comment section. And that way you can see that I am serious about this and I will do the full year. And you'll also probably see how dynamically it changes based on what I'm learning at the time. But either way, I use a tracker and you'll be able to track my progress along with me until the end of 2026.